I'm a big dog.
You think it's a game? You think it's so... Come on!
This ain't no game. This is a warning. Y'all routed the wrong pack of dogs.
Hey, put on that net right now.
You see that 1-1 with that look in his eyes? Run. You see a 2-6 coming at you? You better duck. How you gonna stop him? What? You gonna stack the box? You gonna play man cover? Stop playing.
That's a big time play.
These dogs are fast, these dogs are hungry, and these dogs, they are coming for you.
Run through him, he's scared.
Dogs, let's hunt.
Let's hunt. There we go. On to the next round. How about that? We've got some big-time game coming up in Philly, Thomas, with the weather and all the other ramifications there. We're going to get into that, but how you doing?
Doing well. I'm pumped. I mean, goodness gracious, we haven't had a Wednesday live stream at night in a long time due to a bunch of news that's dropped the past couple of weeks, and one of the last remaining teams standing in the NFC and the AFC. It's crazy that we're 2 wins away from going to a Super Bowl right now.
It is, yes. And honestly, too, we look at the schedule, right? The opponent here with the Rams. I was very much, sure, Commanders a possibility, but I was still preparing for it to be Tampa. So the fact that it's LA, everyone knows the ramifications of like, okay, hey, Saquon ran for 255 yards in LA, dominant performance. It wasn't even that close, right? It was like, 37-12 until they got a meaningless touchdown at the very end. So a runaway game. Now, it's a different team. Yes, the Rams looked good against the Vikings. How much of it was Sam Darnold seeing ghosts and resorting back to what he was previously? But, I mean, I kind of feel like personally, I don't know if I'm necessarily in the minority on this, but I kind of feel like this was the best matchup out of available options that you could have walked into.
It really is, and I think I said this a couple days before the game actually started. I know I have a tweet saying that I'd rather play the Rams than the Vikings, but we're creatures of what we've seen most recently, right? Most recently, we've seen the fact the Birds offense struggled and the Rams offense looked really good, and the Rams defense looked very good. So naturally, people are very worried, but I think if you would have flipped it and the Vikings would have blown out the Rams, we'd be way more worried right now than as we are with the current state of the Rams versus Eagles situation, mainly because we've seen this matchup before, Josh, and anything's possible. Things can change. Round 2 versus the exact same Packer team. Philadelphia held them to just 10 points and won by double digits versus just a 5-point win in week 1. So Eagles won by 17. What was it, 37-20 the first time that they played? Could it be bigger? Is it going to be less? I don't know. I do feel good. The Rams are a good football team. We'll obviously talk about that, but I just think Philadelphia matches up with them so much better than a lot of potential other options that they could have had, whether it be the Commanders, the Bucks, potentially. I mean, obviously the Commanders would have happened to the NFC title game, but I think this is a very good matchup that favors Philadelphia in a big way, especially in potential snowy conditions at Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah, I mean, that if you're the Rams, right, you're not coming to this game going like, oh, good, and I see a comment earlier saying I can't remember who posted this a second ago, but saying like, I'm lazy. I don't know what the Rams record is in a dome versus cold weather games and everything. But, it does make a difference. A team that's not used to playing in cold weather, a team that is more predicated. They do have Kyron Williams. He's been good, but like more predicated towards taking advantage of throwing the football. Matthew Stafford, who, yes, a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He can tear a defense apart. He was on the money against the Vikings, but it's a different story to come to Philly, to play in the cold, have the snow, and it probably is more of a, hey, let's lean on the trenches, and not necessarily because, hey, we give all the praise to the LA Rams for their D-line.
Sure.
Right? It's been really good, especially in the pass rush, but the one way to negate that is to say, all right, we're going to run the football 45 times, and this may be one of those games. We said it all the way back to whenever Saquon first got signed, people going, he's going to get 30 carries a game. We're like, yeah, they'll temper it. It'll be times where, you use him more often. You're in the playoffs now. You're 2 games away from the Super Bowl. So there's no load management. It is, if it's necessary, if it calls for it, Saquon Barkley gets 30, 35 carries, and you run the football with this one. You may not have to pass it a ton, especially with the Rams being 23rd ranked run defense, but we'll see. I mean, they were better, but also, it's like it's just conventional wisdom. It's one thing to stop the Vikings and Aaron Jones. It's another one to go in there and stop Saquon Barkley. So I am very confident, just like you are.
This Rams defensive line is fantastic. It's really good, but they desperately need an Aaron Donald on the inside. That's their one big flaw right now, is they don't have that good of an ability to stop the run. When teams go 12 personnel, when they bring the extra tackle in, whenever they just want to run the football down their throats, Jared Verse is fantastic at speed. He's great at getting around edge rushers. He's not a great run defender, and it's a really big comparison between them and Philadelphia and the fact that Jordan Davis can do that. He can stop the run. And Jalen Carter, fantastic at stopping the run as well as pass rushing versus, Verse, if you will, getting around the edge and being a fantastic kind of pass blocker or, pass rusher overall versus some of the Eagles' pass blockers. So I think Philadelphia matches up well, and I do think you can run Saquon Barkley 30 times the next 3 games, hopefully. And if you do that, Philadelphia's probably going to go ahead and win. And I know we can talk about Jalen Hurts, and we can move into that right now, Josh. I know that they had their troubles on offense, and I know that Jalen Hurts talked to the media today. We'll talk about it on our shows tomorrow, exactly what he said, but basically typical Jalen Hurts jargon where he, says he's all about winning, he doesn't really care, rhythm this, doesn't really matter. I think Jalen Hurts does have to come out firing on Sunday, whether they run the football successfully or not, and make sure that he proves to the rest of the world that, yes, if they need me to on Sunday, which hopefully they don't, I'm able to lead us to a 290-yard, 3-touchdown passing performance through the air if for some reason the LA Rams are able to kind of bottle up Saquon Barkley.
I agree. Yeah, a little bit better. Take advantage of the play action as well, because you know that there's going to be tons of opportunity.
You're muted. Can't hear you.
There we go. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yep,
Okay.
I got
don't
you.
know why. Every time I change back and forth, I have to unmute. It's some sort of setting that I'll figure out before the next game stream. But what I was going to say is, yeah, if you're the Rams, you're coming into this game, you're going, look, he ran for 255 yards against us. That is not going to happen. You won't be happy with it, but you'll live with the fact that you tried everything possible to stop Saquon Barkley, and you lost to the Eagles. If Jalen Hurts goes out there and he carves you up, I think that you live with that. So I would totally agree that the Rams are going to, but again, it's still like, it's one thing to say it, and most teams have, and I think that Jalen, even his pressers, like, I mean, most teams have tried. They've tried to. They can't bottle up Saquon, but they've tried. So, good for them. I will say on that note, and I posted a tweet about this, but Underdog has lost their mind because the line for Saquon's carries was 20.5. It has moved since. I think it's up to 21.5. That still
Grab
feels
it now.
like a very low number. So I'll just say for anyone watching, curious, thinking about a potential, but that is the absolute lock. Feel free to scan the QR code, use code Philly Special, link in the description as well. But I think that one to me is like, you're going to run the ball with Saquon all day, every day in that game, get some benefit there. But I'm excited, like I say, and appreciate CJ Deacon here with the 10 as well. Wanted to get to that. So let's go. Love the vids and streams. What do y'all think is the matchup to watch this Sunday besides Saquon versus the Rams D? Is it Jalen and what he does, or is it more so, you think, limiting Stafford, Nakua? Where do you lean with that?
I'll go Matthew Stafford versus the weather. I mean, Matthew Stafford, I had people saying, well, Thomas, he played in Detroit, and so he's played in a lot of cold weather games, not a lot of meaningful cold weather games. And since moving to the LA Rams, he's played in virtually none in terms of actual bad weather, cold weather games. He's 1-7 in games where it actually rains like a legit amount, where it's a serious rain situation. Now, his most recent one was that shootout versus the Ravens, whenever the Rams, I think it was last year, weren't that great, came into that game, kind of kickstarted their season. But Matt Stafford is not familiar with snow. He's not familiar with rain, especially recently, like I said, since moving to LA. I want to see Matthew Stafford and the entire Ram team perform in 21-degree weather as there's sleet, snow, whatever you want to call it, falling at the Linc, because that to me is the main factor. Philadelphia can sell out to stop the run, and if that's the case, Matthew Stafford's got to throw to win. He's totally capable of doing it. They have the receivers to do it. Tyler Higbee is likely going to play. We'll find out more on that tomorrow. But can he do it in the weather, on the road, in a hostile environment, and potentially from behind? And those are all pretty tough factors, Josh, when you're playing against the best defense left in the postseason. So I'm fascinated by the weather, honestly. I mean, if there was a football team that you would want to have come to the Linc for the one snow game of the postseason, because you likely go to the Lions in the following week, it would be the LA Rams right now. Everybody else, I mean, maybe the Bucks because they're kind of a warm weather team too, but everybody else you're going, man, I've played in cold weather games. Commanders, Washington, D.C. gets pretty cold. There are some nasty rainy games over there. This is a very, very, very I mean, let's just call it what it is, new thing for the LA Rams, especially this season. And I think it might be a big time wake-up call for not just Stafford, but that entire football team.
Totally with you. Yeah. I'm a little bit leery to like go overconfident because, here we are like, hey, great matchup, who you
Sure.
want to be and all this other stuff. But it's like,
Sure.
you look at the spread, you look at the line, and that tells a lot of story. I think everybody or most people would say that. And so it opens up at 6. Then you kind of have a little bit of news. You see what the Rams do, moves down to 5.5. Then you get the news today of looking more and more like you're going to get a snow game, freezing cold, whether it is rain or snow or both. And the line very quickly moves to 6.5, Philly being favored. So it's one of those that you've seen bigger upsets, sure. Like, you got to go out there and play the game. But I'm with you. And also, I mean, I would just make this statement as well as whenever you're looking at this team and breaking it down, Cooper Kupp is not Cooper Kupp. He's not even Cooper Kupp that you saw back whenever I forget which week exactly it was. We played
11, right?
11,
11?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So he's not even to that extent. He has been almost, not completely, but almost MIA. And it's really alarming and kind of crazy for a guy like Cooper Kupp. I know that, Puka Nacua is phenomenal. He's taken a lot more of those targets, but you still would think like, okay, Kupp's going to have 5 catches, 60 yards, 70 yards, something like that. Like he hasn't been over 30 or 35, I think in like the last 4 games. So, you see there's been spurts where the Rams defense has held up their end of the bargain over the last several, but the Rams offense has really, they're 20th in points per game. They've had a couple spells here and there where it's like, oh, hey, that looks pretty good, but they haven't been consistent with it. And I think Cooper Kupp is a big reason why. And, the more that I went back and watched the game, I know a lot of people have. I've seen those comments also. It's like Cooper DeJean, man, he said, hey, Adam Thielen gave him some work. That was after the Rams game. But like what he did on Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know unless there's some big drastic changes there. But I'm kind of like, it seems like you're going into this game. And I think people forget too, it's like Slay did not play mostly. He got the concussion, I think, the first or second series, and was out for basically the rest of the game. So between Slay and Quignon matching up probably against Nacua, and then you have Cooper DeJean to lock down Cooper Kupp. I'm just saying, yes, I'm with you. You never officially fully count out a Sean McVay, Matt Stafford offense, but Fangio's had the number, and he's got the guys to do it, as we've seen for this year. So the only main concern, I'll get to some of the Super Chats here in a second also, the only main concern for me and a lot of people on defense is, can McVay dial up or scheme up a game plan that exploits or takes advantage of the loss of Nakobe Dean? And do we see a little bit of slip up, or are we fully confident in Jeremiah Trotter being out there? So this can be interesting to see. But to me, that's the main factor.
Sure. Go ahead and read those Super Chats, and then I'll gather my thoughts. Go ahead.
Okay, got you. Garrett with a 10. Appreciate that. Said, I don't know the details on Dean's contract, but considering his injury and the time he will be gone, do you see Howie spending the money on him and Zach Bond?
I think it's very clear that Nakobe Dean's career ended with the Philadelphia Eagles when his with his knee injury this past week. He's in a contract year. He was probably going to be re-signed. They would have re-signed both of them very clearly because Dean would have been a lot cheaper than Zach Bond is because he's an all-pro. But I think Philadelphia is going to take a flyer on either Oren Burks or Jeremiah Trotter Jr. going forward. You don't draft Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and then rave about him as they've done really all season long, obviously, especially this week. I think you're going to see a Trotter Jr., Zach Bond starting linebacker group next year, or insert, a free agent signing or, a draft pick or something like that. But I love Nakobe Dean. I would re-sign him back if he can be very, very cheap. But I think Nakobe Dean is probably going to go try and find his bag, and he might go to a lesser football team that's willing to overpay him coming off the injury in hopes of getting pre-injury Nakobe Dean, and that's the risk that team is going to go and have to take. But I would be surprised if he ends up staying in Philadelphia unless he decides to take some super cheap deal. And being that his rookie contract is over and he's a third-round draft pick, he wants to get paid, and he's going to go where that actually happens.
Which is, as we've said multiple times, just gutting to see him go through
really
that. Prayers
really
obviously in the recovery, and you think about like other guys that have gone through the injury. It's devastating, not in the sense of like, okay, yeah, all injuries, knee injuries, things like that. But it'd be one thing if it's the ACL, but the patellar tendon, the recovery on that, I'm afraid you're right. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, man, the length and longevity of that. Simo with a 5, appreciate that. Said, how do y'all feel about the conspiracy that practicing at the Linc leads to spies and our passing game being off. We practiced at the Linc today, FYI, LOL.
They're practicing at the Linc the rest of the week, by the way, so it'll be 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you're getting spies from. Are they staff members that sneak into the stadium? I mean, it's
the janitor.
I think it almost is easier than the NovaCare complex, and as some would argue. But it was interesting, and the problem is, I think, with all 22 stuff is that no one has the full picture. No one has every single play that Philadelphia ran on offense. And so, as Josh and I pointed out on our shows, Dan Orlovsky had a great example of a select number of plays where he went and said, nobody's open for Jalen Hurts. It looks like the Green Bay Packers know what's going on. And so you need the full picture to truly know what's happening. I'd be very surprised if Philadelphia's offense looks that bad this coming week versus the LA Rams. That was the number 6 overall defense last week. Everyone was so quick to jump off the Packer bandwagon when Philadelphia exposed them this past week, Josh, but everyone was on the Packer bandwagon, especially the Packer defensive bandwagon, the course of the last quarter of the NFL season. Now, as we pointed out, they had lost the final 2. They were struggling a little bit banged up in here and there. But the Rams defense is nowhere near considered, at least on the backside, as good as the Packer defense. Now, the front 4 is very good. I think that the Viking offensive line got major exposed in that football game. But I fully expect the Eagles to be able to pass their way to victory here. And I do think Kellen Moore has to coach a good game. I think that Kellen Moore has got to isolate A.J. Brown more on one side of the football field and throw more slants. We saw that just going back and watching the Ram film in Week 11, right? When we played the Rams, the amount of slants that A.J. Brown caught in that football game, it's a game changer because he catches the football 7 yards down the field and then runs for an extra 5 and you get 12. And so I think it's a multitude of things. I don't think practicing at the Linc is the reason why Philadelphia is struggling. The Eagles are doing everything they possibly can to get the competitive advantage because of many reasons. They want to win, but from a team standpoint, the more they win, the more money they make. And so I don't think there's some spy who has learned the Eagles playbook. And at this point in the season, Josh, they've run almost all the plays, right? I mean, all the plays are on film for the LA Rams to go ahead and watch. And so I don't expect anything crazy, and I definitely think they're going to be much better this weekend.
Yeah.
Now, it is going to rain, so we'll see. But
yes. Yeah.
In theory, it'll be better than what we saw. Although, Josh, let me just say this. There was if you go back and watch the Packer game, for as much as Hurts struggled, and it really was those 3 and outs in the second quarter, his 2 scoring drives, especially that big one at Dallas Goedert, he was on top of it. And he followed it up with a 13-play field goal drive behind it that was also really good. The idea that Jalen Hurts was garbage on Sunday is completely inaccurate. Jalen Hurts was not fantastic based on the standard that he set this season, but it was not his worst game by far.
No doubt. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And, I mean, for people saying, like, the practicing at the Linc, and there's all sorts of conspiracies out there. The field is frozen, or had been, at the NovaCare complex as well. You've got heaters under the stadium, so it's a reason of going out there. Now, sure, you could scheme up, dream up anything that you want to, I suppose. The other conspiracy that I've seen out there as well, and a few other comments came in on it, or at least to surface here, is just like, with the wildfires, is it in the NFL script, if you believe in that sort of thing, that the Rams win, should win, because, they want to bolster the community, the rah-rah, everything on there. So,
yeah,
there's conspiracy. I'm not going to put that tinfoil hat on, but I know that people have takes all over the place. It is what it is. We do have a comment here from 30 and a Wake Up. Appreciate that. It says, Rams fan take. Eagles are tough on paper. They had the advantage, no question. However, Stafford is 5-1 in the playoffs since joining the Rams. The only loss by 1 point to the Lions.
Well, I can obviously disprove all of that simply by the fact that the Brandon Perna, what is it, the Wheel of Death, whatever he calls it, the Perna wheel landed on the Rams today, Josh, just FYI, in case you follow these things. So that is,
I missed that.
It landed on the Vikings last week.
So we're good to go.
Vikings, Rams this week. That basically guarantees Philadelphia. Now, listen.
Hammer the Eagles minus 6.5 then. There you go.
Sure sounds like it. The Rams are a great football team. I don't want to come on here and pretend like Philadelphia, has nothing to worry about, and the Rams are garbage. I think the Rams are a good football team, and I think that Sean McVay makes them as dangerous as humanly possible. And Matthew Stafford, playoff Matthew, you just mentioned, 5-1 in postseason games with the LA Rams. They're very, very good. I think the big difference between this week's LA Rams and last week's LA Rams was the extra week of prep that Sean McVay clearly had by resting his starters in Week 18 and all but guaranteeing that the Vikings were going to lose that game to the Lions. Like, if you would have actually looked at the Week 17 or the Week 18 slate, really going back to Week 17 and then preparing for Week 18 in the wild card round, the Rams could have felt more than 70% confident they were going to play the Minnesota Vikings. And Sean McVay dialed up the perfect offensive game plan. They weren't fantastic, by the way. It was a lot more that defense. But Sean McVay with time is like Andy Reid with time. He's like technically Nick Sirianni post-bye week has been very good with time as well. The scheming is really, really great. Now, the fact that he gets to see Philadelphia for a second time means he will make adjustments. But Vic Fangio historically has had Sean McVay's number. The Eagles themselves have had Sean McVay's number. And so while I think there's a healthy amount of respect for the LA Rams that every Eagle fan needs to have, the matchup, again, is just so incredible because they're not strong at cornerback. So if Philadelphia needs to throw, you would assume the Eagle pass catchers can get open. Remember, Devontae Smith didn't play in that game, and they still threw the football pretty well. And the offensive line versus defensive line matchup cannot be overstated, Josh. We spent 10 minutes on it earlier. The pure size difference alone and the ability to do bully ball. And when you want to run the football, Josh, especially in bad weather, resetting the offensive line back towards the LA Rams 2, 3, 4 yards makes all the difference in the world. And if Philly gets an early lead like we saw them do this past week, most of the entire, second half of the NFL season, it's going to be tough sledding for a Rams team against an Eagle defense, by the way, which no one's talking about, is creating every turnover under the sun over the past month, which has been, honestly, really incredible and was a big factor why Philadelphia won this past week.
Seriously, yes. That is a fantastic point, Thomas. And also, it's complimentary football in the sense that, hey, look, there's going to be haters, there's going to be critics, there's some that's warranted, you can nitpick all you want. On both sides, especially with Jalen, right? Because there's people out there just like, well, Jalen's not playing. He's missed a couple open receivers. You got some that are saying the receivers aren't running good routes. You have some saying that Kellen Moore's not scheming up the right plays, not calling the right plays. It's a connected and joint effort. But all sides, you heard from the guys themselves. So whether you want to buy into the media criticism or not, Jalen said it, Sirianni said it, Kellen Moore said it, A.J. Brown said it, Saquon Barkley said it, Jordan Mailata, like everyone was, we need to be better. Offensively, we need to be better than what we were against Green Bay. But the positive, I think the biggest positive takeaway there is the Eagles have played clean football. They're not shooting themselves in the foot. So the only main thing for me, like offensively, is this game gets a lot closer if you start turning the football over. If you're taking care of it, like you said, they shift and reset the line of scrimmage. They knock the guys off the ball 3 yards, so Saquon's not getting even touched until the 3-yard mark. It's just a night and day difference. And then, yes, the defense for the Eagles has been, we've run out of words by this point in the season, but it's like to go to the number one defense, and it took a little while because we didn't see those turnovers. It was like, oh, hey, they're not allowing a whole lot of points, they're not allowing a whole lot of yards, but you're not seeing the turnover. Now we're seeing the turnover. So it's just, they usually come in bunches. Whoever gets that first turnover, you kind of start feeling a little better. You're like, all right, hey, you know what? We're probably going to see a couple more. But yeah, there's all the reason in the world for, I think, for confidence in this one. Let me hit on Ethan's here. I missed this super chat a second ago, but appreciate the 10. Ethan said, I've been watching the media talk down to us all week, but that's exactly what they said about us last week. And look who won. Excited for this weekend and looking forward to both your videos this week. Appreciate that, Ethan. I do wonder, I've always wondered when the media is going to realize that, like, being negative about a good team never sells with the audience. It never does. Now, Josh and I truly actually believe in the Philadelphia Eagles. That's why we're so positive about it. But even if we didn't, it just doesn't work. Eagle fans want to be excited about this football team, and it's so hard to pretend like they're not going to be great. I remember watching people last week, all they could do was rave about Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers are so fantastic. And you sat there and you went, the Green Bay Packers have lost 2 in a row, right? Jordan Love is obviously banged up to some degree. We don't really know how much. And then when you go apples to apples, it's like Philadelphia should win this football game. And I feel the same way about this one. I think Stafford and Nakua are definitely an upgrade, and I really think the defensive line is an upgrade as well. But overall, Philadelphia is a great football team, and they still are a juggernaut in the NFL playoffs. And until a team can prove that they can score on the Philadelphia Eagles, like really score, Josh, like until a team proves to us that they can drop 30 on Philadelphia, I just don't know if a team is going to be able to score enough against this defense, Nakobe Dean or not, to really strike a major fear in me. And now maybe it happens on Sunday. Maybe the Rams score 30, but the Rams scoring 30 at 20-degree weather at the Linc would be pretty shocking. I mean, I would eat my words, but a team has got to score 30 to beat Philadelphia, and I haven't seen one be able to do it. Yeah, the team that I think the team that scores 30, if a team scores 30, is going to win the game. Like first one to 30, absolutely.
Oh, you muted yourself again.
I don't know why it keeps doing it. Again, every time I swap back and forth.
Scared me.
I will, like I said, I will figure it out for the game stream, but for some reason it's doing it. But what I was saying is for the Rams, like if they're, I would be shocked if they score 30. The defense, you take away the Commanders game, right? Outside of the Commanders game where Jalen got hurt, there hasn't been, I think it's 20, right? No team has scored 20 since the bye week, or 20 is like the most defensively. There's been some, I guess the fumble from Saquon that got the Jaguars
Sure.
220, but they haven't scored
Sure.
20 points on the defense. So, I don't know. There's so many ways that you look at this team and you're like, it just does not seem like you're not going up against a Ravens team here. And I've just thrown out a random one, but you're not going up against a Ravens team here saying, oh man, we lost Nakobe. It's going to be cold weather game. Can the run defense still be vaunted?
Yeah.
It's a team that is more so wanting to throw the football. And the weather, I think, is a great equalizer. It says, no. You know what? You gotta win in the trenches. And Philly has a massive advantage there.
Well, and I do think that in talking about the loss of Nakobe Dean, obviously we both agree it's massive. I'm leaning towards them starting Jeremiah Trotter Jr. They obviously have not announced that yet. I think there's been enough talk to where it sounds like he's going to get the start. And I think the missed tackling of Oren Burks, especially in that second half versus Josh Jacobs, is weighing heavy right now. And it's not to say that Trotter Jr. is a great tackler. We haven't seen him play a lot of football games. But going back to college, that was kind of his thing. He was always a little bit undersized, and yet he was a sure tackler at Clemson. And I think that's more what Vic Fangio is kind of hoping for out of his Nakobe Dean replacement, because the one thing Nakobe Dean did fantastic was tackle in the open field. Go fill the A-gap, find the running back, and bring him down. And so I think they're leaning towards Trotter Jr., and maybe McVay can handle that. But that's going to be something that, obviously plays a factor in this football game. The other thing that no one talks about, Josh, and I was going back the past couple of playoff years, every single year in the postseason, we get one of these wild card teams that it's like blows out the other team. Like the Houston Texans blow out the LA Chargers last week, and it's like, whoa, are the Texans back? But in reality, what it actually is happening is that there are serious tiers in the National Football League. There are 4 really good football teams, 2 in each conference right now. And then there's probably 2 more that are a little bit lower. And then there's like this giant drop that keeps going down. There are levels to the NFC and AFC. And the Houston Texans are going to go to Kansas City, and they're not going to win. I mean, it's very, very clear that they're not going to win. And dating back to previous years, you go back to 2022, remember the Jacksonville Jaguars in that year, Josh? They had just pulled off this massive upset of Justin Herbert, and they were obviously red hot going to Kansas City. They didn't beat the Chiefs on the road. Same thing goes for the New York Giants that same season. New York was not supposed to beat the Vikings. They crushed the Vikings. They looked way better than the Vikings, and it was like, whoa, what if they're red hot coming to Philly? And we destroyed them, right? And the same thing goes back to just even this past season where you had a scenario, Houston gets that first win, CJ Stroud, they're on cloud 9. Oh, can this be the year? They go to Baltimore and lose 34-10. And the exact same thing happened in the Green Bay Packer going against the San Francisco 49ers. The Packers were red hot. They coming back against the Dallas Cowboys, then they go on the road and they lose. These hot wildcard teams that find a way to win in round 1 usually go into the divisional game still on the road because they're likely back-to-back weeks, not the Rams, but likely back-to-back weeks, and it's a lot more difficult than people realize.
Completely agree with that. I do have one question, possibly a counter argument to that. I'm curious to get your thoughts.
Sure.
Because people are also asking similar things along the lines. But first, let me get the super chat. Hank Schrader, appreciate it. Says, new subscriber to both. Do you guys live in Philly? We do not. Thomas is in Atlanta.
We do not.
I'm in Dallas. But
scandalous.
We've
Not
been to
real Eagle
Philly.
Fans. We're plants. Right?
we are.
That's what
yes.
we get.
That's what some people believe.
No, I got hired for a job in Atlanta, so I moved here. And then now I don't work that job, but I like Atlanta, so I bought a house. So that's why I'm in Atlanta.
There you go.
Josh is secretly a Cowboys fan because he lives in Dallas. There you go. I said it.
Yes, my family, we don't necessarily get along at family reunions, but no, we do. But, I let him hear it, obviously, because being an Eagles fan, born and raised, I just, I saw the light, so just, there you go. For anybody else in a family like that, you too can
we know you're
find
out
redemption. It is
we
possible.
know you're out there.
There is a way. Okay, so, and I'm going to get to Shady Luke's here also. I missed Hannah's also. Okay, let me hit these real quick, and then I was going to throw out the other outlier. Hannah with a 20 bomb. Let's go. Says, despite McVay's great play calling, he's haunted by Saquon's 255 yards on them last time, so he's going to load the box to attempt to stop it. But that means AJ, Devontae, Dallas will feast. Good luck trying to put versus AJ.
Yeah, the what is it? The underdog fantasy high or lower for AJ is 4.5 catches. If you think AJ Brown's going to have lower than 4.5 catches, you're crazy. You are nuts.
After a 10-yard effort, yeah, probably not.
Remember back to that opening drive versus the Rams? It was literally the same scenario back in Week 10. It was like, okay, well, the offense is a little, is it going to throw well? They threw that football like crazy early in that game, and then it was Saquon to start the third quarter, Saquon in the fourth quarter. They didn't have to throw, but they were throwing the football very well in that football game.
Yeah, it was all day. And then they leaned on it because you had you won. I forgot. Didn't you win the? Was it your fantasy matchup that week?
Yes, because
and you needed Saquon. He just took off. We're like, yes, 50. He got it.
Yes,
okay, yeah. That was epic.
Yep.
Okay, Shady Luke with a 10. Appreciate that. I'm really tired of Eagles fans acting like our offense is going to cost us everything. Jalen and the offense were hot versus the Steelers, and Jalen and the offense came out on fire versus the Commanders. I mean, it's understandable, but like, I think the part where both of us are coming from is Jalen had a concussion that we wondered, would there be rust? Jalen will still take the I don't know, however you want to view it, the no excuses approach and say like, no, it's not, there's no such thing. There's no such thing as rhythm. He doesn't buy into momentum, all this other stuff. Like, cool. I can appreciate that. But realistically, there's a little bit of a you're not around the team. You're not around any film watching, game plan prep schemes, anything like that. And you expect to walk in round one of the playoffs and not miss a beat at all. Like, okay. Maybe there's a little bit. I think it was okay. There might have been also the vanilla offense, knowing or thinking, hey, you know what? We don't have to show everything against Green Bay because we're doing perfectly fine. We don't need to make this thing super complex. I don't know. It's just, curious. You see Dan Orlovsky breaking down the routes, and you're like, feels like you could have a little bit more creativity. Feels like you could have a little bit more answers for Jalen. Yeah. But either way, you got the win. So it is totally fair.
There you go.
We keep getting these super chats, which we appreciate, and I will save my comment here for a second whenever we get through these. JH with a 10. I honestly love watching the national and local media lose their minds that we win throwing 100 yards a game. Their brains can't process it each week. The meltdown gets more and more intense. Go Birds.
Yeah, I saw Nick Wright's quarterback tree left in the playoffs, and Jalen Hurts is at the very bottom, which, if you remember back to 2017, Nick Foles at the very bottom of the old first thing first quarterback pyramid, or whatever Nick Wright calls it. So I have tried to get Nick Wright on the show because I used to work on that show way back in the day, and he does not want to acknowledge my existence. So one day we'll get to talk to Nick Wright about the crazy disrespect Philadelphia gets. I just don't think the Eagles care, and I think Philadelphia, regardless of Jalen Hurts' play, which wasn't great last week, and honestly, I will admittedly say I thought it was going to be much better than it was, the Eagles are so loaded right now that Jalen Hurts can throw for 150 yards, still throw for 2 touchdowns, not turn the football over, which is very clearly an emphasis, and they're going to win by double digits. They should have dropped 30. It should have been like a 20-point victory on the Green Bay Packers if Saquon doesn't slide, and yet Jalen Hurts is terrible, and they're going to slip up. I do think, Josh, and we got a lot of super chats here, I do think that they will need to have a great Jalen Hurts in the NFC Championship game. Maybe this weekend, sure. I don't want to disrespect the Rams. You're going to have to score points versus the Lions, but I think that's probably the one game, right? The one team where you might have a shootout scenario. Now, what will they do versus Philly's defense? Again, that's the great limiting factor that no one wants to talk about. But I think the Eagles are built to win football games regardless of what number one does.
Yes. Yep. I agree. It will be interesting too, because we look at it all from all sides, but I think that as let's see, Shady Luke here with the super chat also, continuing on the same line, it says with the 10, it is, and isn't it funny when talking about the Philly in the national media acts like our defense isn't number one and forced to be reckoned with.
They do kind of forget that. They do kind of forget that. It's all about the offense, which still is scoring. Again, it should have scored 30 against the number 6 defense, and yet the fact the Eagles held the Green Bay Packers to 10 points, nobody has mentioned that. Nobody mentioned that. If it's just like, assume the Eagle defense is going to allow them to only have 10 points. Whatever. But did you watch Jalen Hurts? Oh, I'm a little scared.
Man. We should. Like, Thomas, let me ask you this. We won 22-10, And as you just said, there could have been 29-10, 30-10, depending on, score, 2-point conversion, whatever. But like 29 to 30 points if Saquon just runs it in there. And it's a completely different looking game, perspective, whatever. Like you just blew him out. But I would say, like, what in terms of we know what this offense can be, full potential on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best that we've seen, the best that we know that they can play, and a 1 being obviously atrocious and nothing. I mean, what? They were probably a 6.5, a 7 at best. Like that's the thing that nobody is giving credence to, is saying like, yeah, I don't know, 22 points, it's not that much. Green Bay, they won convincingly, and they did not play their best football. So I still say it's like you're confident in the group, but they're always going to be doubted, and I think that's a place that I like to be in. Rhett Olson with the 50 bomb, 50 big ones.
Massive,
Rhett. Let's go.
Massive.
Says I appreciate you guys. Enjoy your content.
There you go. I appreciate you, Rhett. Massive 50 bomb. Playoff 50 bomb. How about that?
We appreciate you, Rhett. Big time. Okay, this feels like a good time to insert my comment here because we've been going through a lot of super chats, and I'll get to some of the others. I do see you guys. So here's my counter argument earlier to wild card teams, right? Like, they win the first one. Do they get destroyed the next round, or they can't put up a fight? Can the Washington Commanders beat the Detroit Lions? And before you answer that immediately, here's where I'm going with this. So in college football, sometimes you can get a better reference of going like, okay, common schedule, who beats who, how other teams do, other things like that, right? Okay, so now you go and look at, and hang on, let me see. I got these stats here because I was making a note of this.
Oh, wow.
I got the pink Post-it note because that's all my daughters like to use. But, okay, so Vikings, outside of playing their division, against playoff teams, Vikings 1-1 on the year.
Yes.
Lions, outside of playing their division, 2-2 versus playoff teams. Packers, outside of playing their division, 2-1 against playoff teams. So technically, the Packers had a better playoff record against playoff teams, than the Vikings and the Lions did. Now, here's where I would go with this argument. The Rams blew out the Vikings. Okay? The Eagles, very convincingly, beat the Packers. Could have blown them out. Maybe did. However you want to classify that one.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the Detroit Lions are bad. I'm not even saying that they're not good. But are they a little bit inflated because we're saying like, man, these teams have really good records, and when they play against each other, they look solid. It's a really good division and everything else. But if we go and say, okay, when they play these other playoff teams, I mean, the Tampa Bay Bucks, I know it was earlier in the year, but the Bucks went and beat Detroit in Detroit. So that all I'm going to put out there is, can the Commanders win? I'm not asking will they, but can the Commanders win? And also the fact that the line is 9.5 points, I think at this point, is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and obviously we all want the Commanders to win because that means you come to Philadelphia, and the odds of the Commanders winning 3 games in a row, and where they probably, it's a close shootout if they can beat the Lions, it'd be great. The biggest problem for me is the Commander run defense. It's garbage. It's really, really, really bad. And we've seen that multiple times when Philadelphia has played them. We saw it. I mean, Philadelphia, if Jalen Hurts survives that game and is actually still in that game, probably rushes for another 200-plus yards, and they dominate the Commanders, and then they don't lose. I just don't know if Jaden Daniels can play mistake-free long enough. He has to be perfect, right? And when asking a rookie quarterback to be perfect, not just in your first playoff game, but another one with all the marbles on the line, is extremely difficult to do when your defense is getting gashed left and right. And I think that's the main problem that I have, and why I shake my head, and say the Commanders have no shot. Because Detroit is going to hang 30, which means that the Commanders have to hang 31. They got to hang 34. They got to hang 33. And it just feels like Jaden Daniels will have a rookie moment, because all rookie quarterbacks do, and it's not their fault, but it just happens. And when that rookie moment hits, it'll be in a critical spot in the third quarter, gives the possession back to the Detroit Lions, and the rest is history. So as much as I would like to see it, as much as I believe in the Commander offense, they have weapons. Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz is like, it's like 2017 Zach Ertz all of a sudden. I mean, Zach Ertz disappeared and should have retired, and now he's back and looking like a guy Philadelphia should never let go. Obviously, the right choice that they made. And they run the football well with Brian Robinson. But that Commander defense, I think, has no shot to try to figure out the enigma that is the Detroit Lions, because it's not just Jahmyr Gibbs. It's not just the offensive line. Amon-Ra St. Brown on those deep over routes, especially against zone coverage, and they run a lot of zone coverage, especially whenever you play the Commanders, because you got to worry about, making sure you're in your lanes, going against Laporta and going against Jameson Williams and the rest of these receivers. I just don't think they have the defensive power to figure it out. So I think that they get blown out. I genuinely think that that's going to be a 31-14 sort of football game. I really hope I'm wrong. I don't care. I mean, either way, I hope the Commanders keep it close. That way Detroit doesn't get a bye week. But
For sure.
I
Yeah.
just don't know how the Commander defense stops the Lion offense. I don't think they've seen anything close to the Detroit Lion offense all season long, and that includes playing Philadelphia.
That's fair. That's fair. Again, I'm not saying that I think that they'll
No,
win.
I know.
I do
I know.
just feel like there's an avenue.
I
There's
get
a
the
way
thought
to
process.
look for it. So, we'll
Yeah.
just throw it out there. I know a lot of people are rooting
it's the
for
same scenario. It's C.J. Stroud and the Texans last year. They pull off the upset in round one. Stroud is like, oh my gosh, this rookie's he has every, and then they go to the Baltimore Ravens, and it was like, what are we doing? Like, this is not a fair competition. And so I think that's going to be very likely what we see again.
Yep. I'm hopeful. Deron Payne, I know I saw the dislocated finger. I don't know if he's going to be able to.
Don't know yet.
The one against the run defense, it has been a little bit better. We wouldn't say it's like, top 10 run defense, but a little bit better since Jonathan Allen returned, and then you have the combination of Deron Payne. So, well wishes. Hopefully they can get something supercharged there.
Just
no
keep it
injuries and
close.
everything else, but
Make it hard. Keep it
I
close.
like
That's all we need.
taking plus
All we
points with the Commanders. Maybe I'm dead wrong. You might be right. It's 31-14, and
It's gonna be
it's over. But I don't know. It's tempting. It's
gonna be a
Brian
blowout.
with a 5 says this Rams team feels like the house cat who escaped outside and not knowing how to function in these weather elements.
I like that.
Good analogy there.
I like that.
Hopefully so.
It might. Again, it's so hard because the Rams are very talented. Puka Nacua had 100 yards receiving. It was one of the first real receivers besides Jamar Chase, although that wasn't a close football game, that I think kind of worked the Eagles secondary a little bit. But you mentioned Darius Slay was out. There was a really bad pass interference call, if I remember correctly, on Isaiah Rodgers that didn't feel like it was like the right call. So I think Slay being in there makes a difference. I think Q, honestly, is a little frustrated right now. Q has had back-to-back not so great games, especially this most recent one against the Green Bay Packers in the pass interference call. He has not been locked down Quinyon Mitchell that we've seen and come to know and love. I think he's hungry for one of those lockdown clinics. I know he didn't get a ton of yards thrown on him, but he gave up that pass interference, a couple of other catches. I think we're going to see a masterclass there. And the other factor, Jack, was I'm very disappointed that you, of all people, did not bring up yet. First time we played the Rams, Nolan Smith virtually didn't exist. Nolan Smith is a serious problem right now in the Philadelphia Eagles. I never called Nolan Smith a bust, but I did say after his rookie season that he has a massive, massive way to go. Like he has got to. It's going to be a long trudge up the hill to get Nolan Smith to be even a good rotational defensive end right now. Nolan Smith is turning into a star before our eyes the past couple of weeks. And if this is the Nolan Smith that we're going to get the rest of the way, but slowly improve year after year, Philadelphia is going to look back on the 2023 NFL draft and be like, this might be the best, double first round that you could possibly have had, paired with DeJean and Quinyon the following year. Nolan Smith's been incredible. And I know BG was playing very well, and then he got hurt in that game. They still had 5 sacks of Matthew Stafford and didn't essentially have a Nolan Smith that's capable of what Nolan Smith is doing right now. It's a big factor that a lot of people are missing. You're doing great. You should just keep going. I'm just letting you keep talking about it. It's fantastic. I don't want to stop you. I talked about it I don't know. I think it was like 5 or 6 minute segment on Nolan Smith for the game recap. So I didn't want to go overboard with it, but absolutely yes. I mean, what Nolan's been doing, you wanted to see it. We wanted to see it from the draft. All the potential that he had and he brought to it. But there was. So rawness to his game. He needed to get improved, obviously get the reps, and we're seeing it just a night and day difference. To me, the biggest, and I know that the stats are kind of skewed towards, or at least the sacks are the sexy number, right? You look at it and you're like, oh, hey, he's got 6 sacks in the season, 2 sacks in the playoffs. Those are big time. Don't take anything away from it. But for me, the biggest is his impact in the run game. It's not like okay, Cole, you could go get the passer, because Hassan Reddick could do that, but Nolan Smith is better against the run than Hassan Reddick. It's a multiple facet to say, hey, this dude's just physical. He's a football player out there who's ready to smash somebody. And so I think that the fact that he's doing that, as you mentioned, BG had his best game of the season, and it's sad that was the one that he goes out on. But I'm sure the guys are hungry maybe to all right, hey, we get this opponent here. Let's go out there and show something. It's a limited group because they only did 3 rotation, I think, for the edges in that game. It was Nolan, Josh Sweat, and Jalix Hunt.
But yeah, this group, I mean, man, they're hungry. You could see, they could sense it, they could feel it. It's super close. I think, again, as we say, like it only leans toward, with all the other ramifications of the weather, other factors in it. I don't know. I don't want to be overconfident and just go overboard here, because we're the Eagles fans, and maybe there's some bias and fandom and all that other stuff.
A little
that
bit
just
of
kind
bias.
of like goes over
pretty
the
big
eyes, and I
bias.
don't see anything else, right? Because someone else could
man.
try to prove, and oh no, well, the Eagles are going to lose. Like they're set up perfectly for a letdown or upset or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
as objectively as I can try to be, I'll be devastated, yes, but I'll be shocked if the Eagles cannot win this game, because it sets up perfectly for the way they want to play football and what limitations there perhaps or probably will be against the Rams. So Hank with a 2, we appreciate that. 2 more. Says, we got this versus the Rams, and he's calling a Washington over the Lions. Okay.
I want whatever
One of
he's
many.
drinking. I'll
One of
take whatever
many.
he has. Whatever he has. I don't think there's any way, man. I will be the happiest person alive if Detroit loses. And I think Detroit is not an invincible football team. The Detroit defense is not great, but you are going to have to ask Jaden Daniels to be perfect in every aspect of the game. All 4 quarters. They cannot slip up, because you blink and you're down 14 to the Detroit Lion offense. So I'll believe it when I see it, but I just do not see it happening at all.
If it does happen, there's a possibility. Thomas and I have briefly discussed this. There's not a confirmation for sure. We might go to the NFC Championship game, because obviously that would be, Eagles hosting, and
We've never
it's
lost an
pretty
NFC
difficult.
Championship game when you and I were there. We've never lost.
I mean, that's the
We've never
biggest
lost one.
motivator, quite honestly.
Ever.
So
Ever. Literally ever.
nobody else ask how many times we've been there. Just live with the stat that we've never lost an NFC Championship game.
Just one time.
You just
we've
gave
been
it away.
away.
Okay, perfect. Maxwell with a 5. The offense is going to look how Jalen Hurts wants it to look, and he's going to win. In quotations.
That's what he said,
for like
that's what he
Jalen
said
Hurts
today. Yeah, okay. Can we just all be honest that Jalen Hurts' press conferences, I mean, goodness gracious, they just are what they are. They're not that great. Jalen Hurts, I think, would benefit so much. I know he's done stuff like this, from just like a day in the life video where someone hangs out with Jalen Hurts and proves that he's like chill and fun to hang around, because he seems so like not angry, but he just does not want to talk to the media at all. I don't blame him, honestly. I mean, keep my mind.
Sure,
I don't think anyone
absolutely,
really want to. But man, those Jalen Hurts press conferences, they're like begging him to say something about the offense, and his response being like, "I just care about winning," and he like is super monotone. I think is the funniest thing ever, because every single time he goes to the podium, the Eagle media is desperately trying to get something out of him, and he never gives it, and it drives them nuts, and it's very funny to watch. But I get why both sides are frustrated. So.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. At least the mic'd up, it's not the full extent, but at least the mic'd up, you sometimes get a little extra emotion, and you're like, all right, he's more chill. We did get to see that too, the Smitty celebrity softball game, and being there on the sidelines or kind of next to the dugout. There's more of him just kind of cutting loose, being himself. But
There definitely is.
Absolutely.
He's not shown
whenever
in
it's
press
buttoned up press conf, no, you're not going to get anything, and understandably so. CJ Deacon with a 5 says the first playoff game versus the Packers was a lot like the game versus the Ravens defensive game, and they don't say that.
Yeah. It was also similar, kind of, to the Falcon Divisional Round matchup in 2017. The fact that the offense struggled a lot, but of course our defense is way better than the 2017 defense, and the offense as a whole is much better than the 2017 offense, and so that's why they're able to pull away. But very similar feeling and like slow start. There was a comment earlier I missed. That might have been Sava, I think is the name that I saw. We're not talking about, people are missing the fact that the early turnovers were massive, and that is true. We have not mentioned enough the fact that opening, the opening fumble, immediate touchdown, the Slay interception that instantly happened, that dramatically shifted the overall outlook of that football game. Being up 7-0, excuse me, I sneeze there. Being up 7-0 before you could blink and then getting a pick was game changer in that one. And that's what they've been doing. They've been creating a bunch of turnovers, and just do that again on Sunday.
I mean, totally, because you can make arguments, yes, on both sides, but like because I saw a few people discrediting it. Well, if they didn't get the turnover, well, if they didn't get this, but they did, and they've been getting turnovers. They've been confusing quarterbacks. They've been playing physical. They've been the more physical team. So, like you look at past playoff runs, you look at the Super Bowl run. you're getting turnovers. You're dominating teams. Whether people want to say or, discredit, oh, well, just wait till you play the Patriots in the Super Bowl with your backup quarterback. You're going to lose. And, see what happened in 2017. Yeah. So any given day, any given Sunday. And yes, it works both ways, sure, for the Rams. But still feeling pretty good. Mark Holmes in a turtleneck with a 2. Reading my sideline book while I listen to this. There you go.
There you go. Just a little light reading.
Done. Little inner excellence and listening to this.
Inner excellence. That's what I like. Did you see that had like a 500,000% increase on Amazon?
Oh, yeah,
goodness gracious.
It was 523,000 or something like that on the list, and it's literally number 1 on Amazon overnight. So if you ever doubt A.J. Brown's influence.
Power of A.J. Brown.
My gosh.
Power of A.J. Brown.
Honestly, you should consider just writing a book, and if we could have him on the show.
On the sideline.
It doesn't even matter what the book's about. It would just skyrocket. You just make, I assume a ton. I would love to know like what the actual numbers, though, because, I mean, good for that guy, 523,000 to number 1. I assumed that he made hundreds of thousands. I don't know exactly
I'm
where
sure
the
he did.
numbers would be for that, but like, can you imagine overnight your publisher is like, hey, bro, check this out. You're number 1 on the Amazon list, and you'd be going, huh? What happened? You're gonna
be crazy.
A book that was 520. He was. I think I saw this. I think that he was $90,000 in debt, or at least it cost him $90,000 in terms of just advertising.
I did see that.
And all the other stuff.
I did see that.
And now number 1. So at least good for Jim Murphy getting probably an exponential amount of money more than that on his money back. So Chris with a 5, appreciate that, says Hurts has beaten every remaining team / quarterback the last time he played them and finished the games. Why isn't the media talking about that?
It's a good point. That is a very good point.
Hurts gets the there is no, I'm convinced of this, and again, we're talking through a little bit of biased viewpoint, but I'm still convinced of this, that there's no player in the NFL that gets the amount of criticism. And sometimes, if you want to argue it, maybe there's some that's warranted if he plays poorly. But even on the stances where he plays well, it's if Jalen plays well, it's all of the fact that he's got an all-star team. If Jalen plays poorly, it's all on Jalen. Regardless of play calls, who the offensive coordinator, it's all on Jalen. Played awful. And it doesn't matter that you have mic'd up clips and you have footage of Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones from the Super Bowl saying that this is the best performance that they've ever seen playing against a player before. Like, no, doesn't matter. Did it on the biggest stage.
That's been Men in Black erased from people's memory.
Completely.
The
you
Super
don't
Bowl
even
50,
say it.
That one is like zing and it's gone. No one remembers that one. No. And like, we have already stopped talking about how bad Justin Herbert was just last week, right? I mean, atrocious.
Thomas, he's still top 3, top 4 quarterback in the league.
We don't talk about Justin Herbert. We don't talk about. We do not.
He gets a pass because don't you be talking about Justin Herbert in a negative light.
Yeah,
and then whenever Hurts is out, then the double standard. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, the Eagles are going to lose if Jalen Hurts is not there and present. The Eagles are going to. I don't know, Chris. It's a definite fair point. They don't talk about it enough, but I guess again at the end of the day, I kind of appreciate being in that stance because when Jalen and the Eagles are doubted, it just makes them prove it to him more. So I'll take it for a positive. Hannah with a 5. Quinyon Mobe can cement himself as rookie defensive player if he shuts down Puka. He's hard to bring down. How do y'all think he'll do?
I think so, but Q and Slay don't travel, right? And so Puka travels. Puka travels in a Ram offense more than a lot of receivers do. So I think that Q will get his shots at Puka Nacua, but it's not going to be, like Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans was the entire Sunday Night Football. It's going to be this and that. And I do think DeJean is going to have to match up against Puka Nacua a lot more than people realize. I know Kupp plays a lot more slot than Nacua does. That will still be a matchup to watch on Sunday. And Nacua listen, Kyren Williams is very good, but Kyren Williams is a fantasy running back who is going to go, 19 for 81 and a touchdown or 2 because he gets, a 5-yard carry at the goal line. So in reality, when it comes to the LA Rams, the 2 main factors for me are Puka Nacua and Tyler Higbee. And Higbee appears to be okay, coughing up blood, went to the hospital, chest contusion, however bad that is, we don't know. Those are the 2 big factors. And really, Higbee versus these Eagle linebackers versus Jeremiah Trotter Jr. or Warren Burks is more of a matchup that I'm really worried about, alongside, of course, Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. At first, whenever I heard that news, I was like, oh, man, he's not going to play. He said that he's should make it, should play. McVay said the same thing. He's like, Higbee's going to play. He'll be there Sunday. I don't know. That sounds awful. I don't know how often that necessarily happens, but you go to a hospital, get stable condition. Thankfully, he's good, but I don't know. That is kind of a brutal injury. Definitely one to watch. He's been a difference maker when he's on the field for that offense, especially, as you say, the potential mismatch without Trot. I'm going to run through these a couple more, getting up to the hour point. Appreciate you guys hanging out. The 5 from I'm about as excited as my daughters if you hear the scream in the background. The B2B says, I think the what is that? I think the WS, maybe Washington. Oh, I think Washington can win if Goff has a multiple interception game like he had in the past, and Washington can take advantage of at least 50% of those mistakes. If Goff has a game that he had against like the Texans earlier this year, Washington, yes, they will win. If 5 interceptions, they're going to win. I think that he can still, personally, I think he can for sure have 1 interception, and Detroit is probably still winning. But if he has 2, for sure, if he has 3, then we're talking about like, okay, sure, Washington's in it.
Washington at least has nothing to lose, right? Winning 1 playoff game as the current state of their team, rookie head coach, or at least rookie for this team, rookie quarterback. They house money. Go for on 4th down, fake the punts, onside the kick, whatever you need to do. Detroit has a lot to lose because Detroit is anything short of a Super Bowl from being a disappointing season, and yet they're like this massive juggernaut in the NFL. So that, plays a factor, but it's a small factor, I would say. It's a small factor.
Yeah. If we were rooting for, I don't know, if we're rooting for the Detroit to lose, it feels like the better matchup would have been for LA to go there. And then, but of course, then you'd have Tampa coming to Philly. But you never know. Like we say, no team's fully out of it. So Washington, maybe. Hannah with the 2 says Jalen gets more criticism than, the choker Justin Herbert. Man,
that's
what
true.
A nice way to just go out and absolutely choke, have a abysmal, terrible, ridiculous. I mean, more interceptions in 1 playoff game than he had in the entire season. And yet there was maybe on all the national like a 20-minute segment of
2 minute probably,
but like a barely anything of Justin Herbert played bad, blah blah blah. Move on. And then next year they'll start the season and say Justin Herbert, top 5 quarterback, maybe top 3. He's in for a big year. It's like, how many times do we continue to say that? But
he throws a great football. Looks
great.
That's what really matters. Looks really good.
Really
I like
good
Justin
going
Herbert.
into the opposing team's hands.
I think Justin Herbert needs some weapons. Okay, I mean, I don't think their offensive line played that great in that game. I think he's going to be really good. I mean, a great coach, and I think the organization is up and coming. But I think Justin Herbert is some sort of world beater that you bet your life on. So far, no. And that's what Jalen Hurts, I think, tried to say in his press conference after I ripped him for being boring. But Jalen Hurts understands that his record and his win-loss performance since becoming a starting quarterback in the National Football League is actually insane. And if it was anybody else besides Jalen Hurts, people would be putting him up there with the top 3 quarterbacks in the National Football League every single year. But they ignore that because, he doesn't look the part sometimes. And sometimes, but in reality, Jalen Hurts deep down knows that he's putting together quite the resume. I was thinking about this. I was vacuuming my house tonight, Josh, and I was thinking about this. Jalen Hurts wins a Super Bowl, Josh.
The chores there.
Yeah, I like the vacuum. Well, what can I say?
Page. Okay, all right. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, if Jalen Hurts wins a Super Bowl, Josh, his career, it's very young, but it's already up there in terms of Hall of Fame level. 2 Super Bowl appearances. Should have won NFL MVP, could have won Super Bowl MVP, come back, win another or go to their Super Bowl and win it. We're already talking about a Hall of Fame sort of resume, and he's only, less than a dozen years or less than half a dozen years in the National Football League. And yet no one will want to acknowledge that. And yet when he wins the Super Bowl, you'll put his resume up against other single Super Bowl winning champions, and it's going to blow people away whenever it's all said and done.
Without a doubt, yes. I mean, you look at, again, we're talking about the difference of Justin Herbert, but to me, it feels like, there's just not enough credit given. And yes, Jalen could and should and will, and I believe this, and I think a lot of people do, but take another step. Every quarterback is evolving and is continuing to learn defenses, have better reads. This is the first year that he's making the checks at the line and being in charge of the blocking assignments and the scheme there. Like that was previously Jason Kelsey. So he's taking steps and strides as far as not just a passer, but a quarterback and the whole quarterback position. But I still think there's not enough credit given to the fact of live to fight another day. Like Jalen Hurts knows when it's time. He even admitted there's maybe a little bit too conservative that he got at some point in the season, but still, there's a reason that the Eagles and Jalen Hurts has that winning record that you're talking about, Thomas. Like he's not throwing it into double coverage too often. He's not making these way too aggressive throws. And I mean, heck, you look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen took the step that he did this year, not because it's he's getting better as a true passer. It's like, oh my gosh, he's got a better pass this year or whatever, more accurate.
Yeah.
It's because he's been willing to just say, you know what, let's punt. Let's punt the football. Let's not just throw it because we're hoping. And Justin Herbert in the playoff game, and a number of times you've seen, has just been doing that. So I think that, again, you see some quarterbacks do it. If Jalen Hurts does, it's the criticism. You could criticize every quarterback to death and be like, well, they're just not really doing it. But, I mean, if we remember, I'm not saying that Jalen Hurts is Tom Brady, but even Brady for the first, 7 years of his career was like, he's just a game manager. He's bailed out by his defense. He's not really that great. Everyone's, Peyton Manning is so much better than Tom Brady. Yeah. Who's winning? Like at the end of the day, who's winning the Super Bowls? Who's winning the games? That's all I would say.
It's a great point. It's an absolutely great point.
Let me wrap up here as we're at the top there. We appreciate you guys. Drop a like if you haven't already. Make sure to subscribe. I think the last super chat here, Dynel Madera with a 10. Appreciate that. Says, hey, boys, 31-17 Eagles. I'm not worried. The team's not worried. We are going to the Super Bowl.
I love it.
We got a ways to go, but we are, positively.
It is crazy.
Liking it.
We do have a ways to go, but we don't have a ways to go. We win on Sunday. We're in the game that is one away from the Super Bowl, which is always so nuts to be in. Because I remember, like an Eagle fan pre-2017, we really were not close. We never got that close, right? I mean, 2008 against the Arizona Cardinals was like the last time that you were a game away, And then recently, 2017, you're a game away, you win it. 2022, you're a game away, you win it, and then you go to the Super Bowl, right? It's like, it's just crazy that we're a game away from being a game away, and it's a position that so many teams never even get close to. I mean, most teams are worried about which head coaching interview was the worst this week. We've gone through 10 of them, right? And we're preparing for a Rams team that most fans are very excited about. They think we match up very, very well and can win that game, and then you probably go to Detroit, and it's going to be the most watched NFL game of the season because it's probably the two best teams battling it out in this, Godzilla versus Mothra NFC Championship game where the winner takes all. It probably goes and wins the Super Bowl. So it's exciting. It's very exciting.
That is definitely true. Yeah. And it's the best spot to be in terms of a 2 seed. Like, you look at Buffalo. I mean, can you imagine a 2 seed and you got to play the Ravens? There's a reason that line is -1. It might even be money line by the time that you look at it. But I can appreciate it. Let me get this last super chat here, Thomas, and then while I'm doing that, think about official score prediction if you have one as of today. Could change, as we go on, but as of today, your official score prediction. Garrett, though, with the 50 bomb, wrapping us up here with another 50.
Huge.
Appreciate that, Garrett, man. Let's go. Says the media used to be split on Jalen Hurts. I think after the collapse last year, everyone just abandoned him. Colin Cowherd, for example, loved him. Now he refuses to bet on the Eagles. If he wins a Super Bowl this year, minds will change.
Yeah, but I saw a video of Cowherd today, and I actually watched some of Colin Cowherd because it coincides with me taking my lunch break from editing YouTube videos. But
there you go.
He picked Philadelphia to win the Super Bowl, and then he jumped off the train, and he got back on the train this year, and I think he's back off is how I think is where he's at. He's flip-flopped on the Eagles. He has picked us at one point this season to win the Super Bowl, so he let it be known.
Oh, for sure, yes. Yeah, there was the, and it's funny that how it coincides time-wise. After, because I did the game recap video, the day after the Eagles beat the Rams on that Monday show, he literally said then, I'm going to pick the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. So there's the back and forth of like, okay, I'm going to take it, and it's you go with the team that's hot, you go with the team that's proven something in one game, but I mean, it's kind of the way that especially the national media works. It's like, well, let's say this now because we'll get some views and some people that are going to be like, what are you kidding me? You're not going to pick us, and then we'll jump ship and we'll say yes, I'm going to take them, and you just kind of go back and forth. But as of right now, sure, I will say it like we did earlier. I would prefer to have some doubters. Let people say, hey, well, the Rams are going to do the Lions are going to be the one team. Fine.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's line up on the field.
Yep.
Number 1 defense in the NFL. See if they can do it. So
I think we get for our score predictions to wrap up. The question is 30. The question is, does the weather affect both offenses or just ours?
Mm-hmm.
How about 27-17? Do I go double digits? I was double digits last week. Do I do
were.
double digits again this week? The Rams could be a
you.
team to score 20. Maybe. Let's go.
I was going to say,
gosh.
the spread is officially, it kind of depends on where you're betting, but it looks like 6 is the general. So Eagles -6, and the over-under is 43.5.
17-27. 17-27.
All right, I like that. I really hope that's what we get. That'd be phenomenal. Just a 27. I think, just win
That'd be nice.
convincingly. I will absolutely
nice.
take that. I'm going to say, man, it might be. I want to be like just complete blowout and everything, but like lower scoring game, weather possibly.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
Probably.
I'm going to say that it's under the total. So it's 43.5 total. I'm going to say I'll take a 23. I'm going to go a little bit closer. I'll say right on the number. I'm going to say 23-17. It's a push.
Okay.
It's a 6-point game. So
Okay. There you go.
we're close. We're right there.
There you go.
There we go. Last at the buzzer. One more super chat here. Ish with a 10. Appreciate that, Ish. Does feel like weather plays a big factor. LA running back is fumbling. Kyron Williams, I guess, is fumbling machine. I don't know what his numbers are. Do you know his numbers? I haven't seen his fumble totals. I
Do not know.
I
think he does fumble a lot, though.
He
I'm
did
pretty
fumble
sure.
against us, and I remember a couple other games. I just don't know to the exact full extent. Either way, he said fumble machine. Also, Jalen Hurts is not Sam Darnold, and that is very, very true. He is not Sam Darnold. So we got that going for us.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go. There you go.
Everybody, we appreciate you again. Could not do this without you guys. We are super hyped, as you can tell from this stream and the positivity and what the Eagles have in front of them. We will be streaming the game, obviously, as well on Sunday. So be sure to swing by for that. Man, this is big time. As you should tell, we're a game away from a game away.
Came away from a game away.
So
That's right.
Thomas, can't wait for it. Fun as always. We appreciate you guys. Drop a like on your way out. And, of course, y'all know what it is. Oh, Hannah with a 2. Weather, don't forget Stafford played in Detroit. Yes. Hannah, we see that. Thank you for that. Yes.
Long
we
time
talked about
ago.
it as well. But, yeah, he's played in a dome quite a bit. All right. We'll see you guys. Appreciate it.
See you guys. Go Birds.
Go Birds.